ورسوله بعثه الله رحمة للعالمين اللهم صل وسلم وبارك وأنعم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد. This is week 8, November the, what is today's date by the way?
5th or 6th, one of them.
It's the 5th, November 5th, 2019, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed us to get to the point where we are going to discuss the Haud of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, and then we're going to follow that with the discussion of the Sirat and the Qantara bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. And as you can see, or you can't see, what's going on, Shaykh? Something? I thought you could see. There we go. Okay, alhamdulillah. It was good. Okay, so now you can see. As you can see here, last week we began dealing with the reckoning, al-hisab. And this week, inshallah ta'ala, we'll talk about the Haud and the Sirat. I have them both highlighted because we did not finish talking about al-hisab. And there are some very important points that we need to finish covering. So you can see here, we did discuss proofs for the reckoning. Who faces reckoning we did not complete. So we first started, so when we say who faces the reckoning, what are we talking about here? Yeah.
Well, there are exceptions to the rule.
Okay, so Shaykh al-Islam rahimahullah said that all of the creation, he says all of the creation will yuhasabun, okay, will be taken to account for, they will be held to account. However, we said that there are exceptions to that. And did he mean all of the creation? Are rocks held accountable, animals? So we didn't get to that point, okay? But we did deal with the human beings, and that every human being is held accountable, except that there are exceptions. So there will be how many people from this ummah who will enter Jannah without hisab? Close to 5 million. Where do we get that from? Because the Prophet ﷺ said that there are 70,000 from this ummah who will enter Jannah without hisab. In another hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said, with every 1,000, there will be 70,000. Right? And so we did the math last week. What is the characteristic of those people who will enter Jannah without hisab? What is the one characteristic that brings them all together? They are the mutawakkilun. وَعَلَىٰ رَبِّهِمْ يَتَوَكَّلُونَ. So they have true dependence upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. A telltale sign of not having the right dependence upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or the type of tawakkul that allows you to avoid hisab, is anxiety. When you find yourself always worried about what's coming next, what am I going to do about retirement? How am I going to take care of myself? Where am I going to live? And these are the thoughts that pervade and are always running through your head. That is a telltale sign that there's a lack of tawakkul. Because you already know that you will not die except that you will get everything that was written for you. You already know that when you get there, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is al-musta'an and He is al-mu'een subhanahu wa ta'ala. He will help you get to where you need to go. When you get to that bridge, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will help you cross it. When you have true dependence upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it doesn't mean that you don't do what you have to do. The Prophet ﷺ gave us the example of the birds. And he said, if you had dependence upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala like you should, He would provide for you the way that he provides for birds. Do birds sit in their nest and wait for worms to fall out of the sky? Wait for seeds to drop out of the clouds? What do birds do? First thing they do is what? They chirp. It's the first thing they do in the morning before they go out. They chirp. And that chirp is tasbih. That is them praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. لَرَزَقَكُمْ كَمَا يَرْزَقُ الطَّيْرِ. The Prophet ﷺ said, he will provide for you the way that he provides for the birds. They go out in the morning on empty stomachs. They do what in the morning? Stay in their bed? They go out in the morning. But they don't have anything when they go out. They go out without provisions. And they come back on full stomachs. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala provides for them. And if we depended upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala like that, knowing that whatever is for us, we're going to get it. And we got to go out and work for it. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to aid us because we're going to put our trust in Him subhanahu wa ta'ala. We're going to wake up and pray Salatul Fajr, and then we're going to do what we have to do. We're going to start the way the birds start, with the praise of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. لَرَزَقَكُمْ كَمَا يَرْزُقُ الطَّيْرِ. Then He would provide for you the way that He provides for the birds. We honestly could do a 10-week course on tawakkul. I'm not going to do that because I already kind of discussed with Sheikh Hanif what we're going to do next, inshallah. But at some point, these concepts, they really do make up the arkan of ibadah. So when we look at the pillars of worship, we're talking about love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We're talking about hope in Him subhanahu wa ta'ala. We're talking about fearing Him, revering Him subhanahu wa ta'ala. All of that culminates in tawakkul. And so those who avoid hisab, those who do not have to go through that process of saying, you did this on that day, you did this, you did that. They're going through their books step by step. Those who avoid that are those who have true dependence upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَعَلَى رَبِّهِمْ يَتَوَكَّلُونَ. So, we did not finish talking about this particular topic, so we're going to deal with it right now, inshallah, and then we'll go on to the description of the reckoning, and then we'll move on to the Haud, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. Okay, so who faces hisab? The first category is man. First category is man. And Abi Umamata رضي الله تعالى عنه يقول سمعت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يقول وعدني ربي أن يدخل الجنة من أمتي 70,000 لا حساب عليهم ولا عذاب مع كل 1,070,000. And we covered this hadith last week. My Rabb has promised me that 70,000 of my ummah would enter paradise without being called to account, without being punished, and with each 1,000 will be 70,000. طيب. Sheikh Mukhtar. You have page 222 in front of you?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so everybody should turn to page 222.
Beginning of
We're on to the jinn. So the question here is, it says his statement created beings includes the jinn. Page 222, Al-Aqidah al-Wasitiyah with the Sharh of Shaykh al-Uthaymeen. Now,
his statement, created beings, includes the jinn because they are legally responsible.
They are religiously responsible. Legally here, Allahu Alam, if that's the way we would use that terminology. But they are religiously accountable. What does it mean to be religiously accountable? Every one of you should know this. Every one of you has to know this if you don't know it. What does it mean to be religiously accountable for something? Mukallaf is the word in Arabic.
You have to answer to Allah.
You have to answer to Allah. Okay, fine. So, a boy that is 10 years old, is he religiously accountable? Is he mukallaf?
No, he reaches the age.
It depends. That's the answer. It depends. Abdullah bin Amr ibn al-As, Allahu Alam, but in Sirat al-Nubala, it says that his father, al-As, was actually only 11 years older than he was.
Wow.
Let that sink in. Did that sink in yet? Sunk in? That means that he was accountable at 10 and some change. Well, Adam, maybe 11, and then, he was 11 and 9 months or something like that. But the point is, what does it mean to be mukallaf? Knowledgeable is not a condition. Yes. Okay, can you give me a little? It means he hit the age of puberty. Okay, so that's number one. And the second thing, he's sane. He's sane. So reach the age of puberty and sane. At that point, a person is religiously accountable, and that's why we do such a disservice to children to teach them that they're not really adults until they're 18. 18 is an arbitrary number. And it's very arbitrary, because the whole point is you'll find, statutory rape laws and all that stuff change from what? From state to state. What was okay in Pennsylvania is not okay in Delaware, or vice versa, or whatever, because it's an arbitrary number that they put on. Islam is very defined in that. You reach the age of puberty, you're saying that pen is writing. The angels are recording deeds. You don't wake your children up for Fajr. You haven't you start when? When are you going to start? When they're 17? At 7. At 7. Okay. Now, you may not actually start waking them up for Fajr at 7. You're encouraging them. Come on, get up. Okay, they don't get up. Fine. All right. I'm not going to push you out the bed, throw water on you, anything like that. But as they get older, this is our responsibility. You can't come now and expect your child who you didn't encourage to pray at 7, at 8, at 9, at 10, and then you'll wonder why at 16 I'm having some problems. You're going to have problems because they don't even have the right connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And you want them to obey you, to listen to you, you want them to follow a certain path. They can't do it because they weren't trained. And that's the Prophet ﷺ encouraged us, or instructed us, to tell our children to pray at 7. And that's when they start all of the rest of their fara'id as well. So you should encourage them to fast when they're 7. Now, in these hot, summer day, Ramadan fast and things like that, when the child is 7, maybe you give them a half a day. You get them used to the idea of fasting. But you can't now at 15, 14, and the child has already reached the age of puberty, and you're giving them like it's an option to fast. Oh, you got basketball practice? They don't worry about it. You can make it up. No, you can't make it up. Right. Oh, you got football practice? You got to play. Why? Because you need your child to get to the NBA so y'all can move out the hood? Seriously? I mean, have we gotten to the point that we are putting dunya over deen? Period. And that is a huge disservice. A huge disservice. And it doesn't mean that we don't emphasize certain aspects of dunya. Your children need to learn how, especially if you have boys, they need to learn what it means to be a responsible man, to take care of their families. And if that means going to school and getting a degree, then so be it. If it means learning a certain skill so that they can provide for their families, then so be it. But we have a certain order. And, subhanAllah. So you give that emphasis on dunya things, but definitely your greatest emphasis should be al-akhirah. Okay, so his statement, created beings, includes the jinn, because they are legally, meaning they are religiously responsible, because jinn understand the Quran. They understood. And the Prophet ﷺ was sent to al-thaqalain. He was sent to both jinn and mankind. Now,
and as such, the disbelievers among them will enter the fire according to the text and the consensus.
So both the text of Islam, revelation, and consensus is that the jinn will enter the hellfire. Now,
as he
the
exalted,
disbelieving among the jinn will enter the hellfire. Now,
as exalted as he, Ta'ala, translation reads, Allah will say, enter you in the company of nations who passed away before you, of men and jinn, into the fire.
All right, so this ayah you can see from Surah Al-A'raf. Allah will say, enter you. Yeah, he's talking to enter you in the company of nations who passed away before you, of men and jinn, into the fire. So that means that in the fire will be what? Jinn and Men. Nah.
And the believers among them will enter paradise according to the majority of the people of
Right.
knowledge.
This is the majority opinion of the scholars, is that the believing among the jinn will also enter paradise. Right.
And that is correct. As proven by Allah's statement, translated reads, but for him who fears the standing before his Lord, there will be 2 gardens.
Okay. Stop there. وَلِمَنْ خَافَ مَقَامَ رَبِّهِ جَنَّتَانِ فَبِأَيِّ آلَاءِ رَبِّكُمَا تُكَذِّبَانِ. Okay. What does that mean? But for him who fears the standing before his Lord, there will be 2 gardens. Then which of your Lord's favors will you both? Huh? فَبِأَيِّ آلَاءِ رَبِّكُمَا. Huh? So of your favors will you both, O jinn and men, deny. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is mentioning that from the favors that he has given to both jinn and man is what? 2 gardens in paradise. In paradise. Which means that the jinn will enter paradise. And this is what many of the scholars of tafsir have mentioned here. The second part that he mentions, Ibn Kathir rahimahullah ta'ala, لَمْ يَطْمِثْهُنَّ إِنسٌ قَبْلَهُمْ وَلَا جَانٍ. That particular ayah, which I don't know why they translated like that, but anyway, don't read that. Skip. Will the reckoning involve animals? Okay.
Will the reckoning involve the animals? As for qisas, retaliation, then the animals are included in that. That is because it is affirmed, it is true, that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that retaliation will be taken for the hornless ram against the horned ram. This is a form of retribution.
It is a form of retribution. It is a form of showing the justice of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that even animals will get their rights back from other animals. But there's not going to be a reckoning in the sense that there's a hellfire or a paradise for animals. Nah.
224 now.
Just finish. This is a form of retribution.
This is a form of retribution, a payback. But reckoning, that is a final take into account, will not be taken in their regard as a matter of compulsion and responsibility, because animals do not have reward, nor do they have or get punishment.
Nah. Okay, keep going. It's 224. And
Translation.
soon enough we'll get here. Who doesn't have this one from today? Who does not have it? Okay. Need one? All right, pass them out, Tahir. Jazakallah khair.
The 224th page begins that he will be alone, Allah will be alone with his believing slave
To your right.
and make him acknowledge his sins, as that is described in the book and the sunnah.
Okay, so here we get to the point where we're talking about the description of the reckoning. Pages 224 through 226. وَيَخْلُ بِعَبْدِهِ الْمُؤْمِنِ. So now we're describing once Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala once the books have been distributed and a person receives their book and they look at their deeds, what comes next? What comes next? At this point, he says, وَيَخْلُ يعني Allah Azza wa Jal بِعَبْدِهِ الْمُؤْمِنِ فَيُقَرِّرُهُ بِذُنُوبِهِ. He will be alone with his believing slave and will make him acknowledge his sins. Shaykh Mukhtar, read the hadith that's on the board and then we get back to the to Wasitiyah. So here Tahawi's creed. Now,
Abu Bukhari rahimahullah has recorded in his Sahih a hadith reported by Aisha radiallahu anha that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, on the day of judgment, whoever is called to account is doomed. She said, Rasulullah, has Allah not said, then whoever has given his record in his right hand, soon will his account be taken away by easy reckoning? The Prophet alayhi salatu wasallam
so let's just real quick. So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, whoever is called to account will be destroyed. He's doomed. So Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha, she said, O Messenger of Allah, didn't Allah say in the Quran, فَأَمَّا مَنْ أُوتِيَ كِتَابَهُ بِيَمِينِهِ فَسَوْفَ يُحَاسَبُ حِسَابًا يَسِيرًا? Didn't Allah say that whoever is given his book in his right hand will face an easy reckoning? His account will be easy. The Prophet ﷺ said whoever is called to account will be destroyed. So Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha, al-faqiha, radiallahu ta'ala anha, she, and subhanAllah, I mean, you can't say enough about how important it was that the Prophet ﷺ was married to her. Radiallahu ta'ala. Despite what the people who want to malign the Prophet ﷺ would say today, that it was very important, and she was super intelligent, subhanAllah. And so when she heard this from the Prophet ﷺ, she said, wait a minute, that doesn't sound like it coincides with what Allah said in his book. And so she asked the Prophet ﷺ, explain. Now, go ahead.
The Prophet ﷺ said, this will be only a presentation of the deeds.
Like, so in other words, al-ard is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala not questioning the person saying, why didn't you do this? But making that person acknowledge, you did this on such and such a day. Yes. You didn't do what you're supposed to do on that particular time or whatever. So it's not one of those things of where there's a severe interrogation. It's al-ard, which is a presentation.
But whomever is questioned in detail on the day of judgment,
يعني من نوقش الحساب, that you now it's time to go back and forth. A munaqasha. It's like a back and forth. Whoever gets to that point,
then he will be punished.
Then he will be doomed. He's punished. Now, that is,
if anyone's account is scrutinized, looked at real closely, he will be punished, and rightly so. However, Allah may forgive and pardon, but we will return to this point later, insha'Allah ta'ala.
Okay, so let's go back to Wasitiyah. Page 224. This is the description of the reckoning of a believer. And ikhwan, wallahi, listen. And we'll get to this when we talk about the Haud too, inshallah. Many times, in fact, a majority of the time, when we think about Yawm al-Qiyamah, we think about the terrors of that day, the horrors, the fear, right? But for the believer, along with that fear, there is also a lot of khair that comes about even before entering Jannah. Like drinking from the Haud of the Prophet ﷺ. Like this here, subhanAllah, I mean, look at the mercy of Allah Azza wa Jal. That he yakhlu bi'abdihi al-mu'min. That he does what? He pulls him, almost like we say, pull somebody to the side. Allah Azza wa Jal there's no disgrace here. Allah Azza wa Jal in his abd. So even that presentation of the deeds is not done in front of the rest of the creation. From the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And you look at it, this is the description of the reckoning of a believer. A true believer will have a very easy reckoning with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so along with that fear, and we should fear, the many descriptions, I mean, you think about the sun drawing near, except for the fact that there's what? There's also shade. And that there are things that a person can do in this life that will help him to earn that or help him to gain that shade from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's mercy. Nah, Shaykh, hold on.
Concerning his statement, he will be alone with his believing slave and make him acknowledge his sins. This is the description of the reckoning of a believer. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will be alone with him without anybody looking at him, that is the slave, and then he will make him acknowledge his sins. He will say to him, you did so and so, you did such and such, so that he can confirm and admit them. Then he would say, subhanahu wa ta'ala, I covered them up for you in the world, and I am pardoning you for them today.
Allah Akbar. Allah Akbar. And that's how a believer as well should ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for his sitr. And that Allah Azza wa Jal covers, Allahumma astur awrati. Allahumma astur awrati. The Prophet ﷺ used to make that dua in the morning and in the evening. Oh Allah, cover my awrat. Awrat are things that you would be normally ashamed of. And that could be both physical, there could be tangible things, or the intangibles. But, I mean, part of the awrat is the plural of awra, which means what? What do we usually use the word awra for? Your private area. Things that you just wouldn't walk out in public and want people to see. Or you shouldn't. I mean, these days, Allah musta'an. But you shouldn't want people to see. So, al-awrat is the plural of that. It's things that normally you would be ashamed of. Allahumma astur awrati. Prophet ﷺ used to make this dua as a part of a longer dua. But oh Allah, cover my shameful things. Now,
with this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala places a cover before him such that none will see or hear him. This is the believer. This is Allah's favor, the mighty and sublime, subhanahu wa ta'ala, upon the believer. But when someone makes you acknowledge your offenses before people, even if he pardons you for them, you will still feel some embarrassment and shame.
Understand that point? You understand that point? He says here, when someone makes you acknowledge your offenses, even if they pardon you for them, there's still shame and embarrassment involved in that. It's like you got to go up in front of everybody at work and say, yeah, I did A, B, C, and D. The boss is not going to dock your pay. He's not going to, but that in and of itself is a form of punishment because it's done publicly. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala shields his believer from that. So the believer, his reckoning is done what? In private. There's an acknowledgement of what was done wrong, but then that person is pardoned. Nah.
But if you are alone with Allah Ta'ala, then this is a complete shield from him as a gift from Allah for you concerning his statement as that is described in the book.
You can skip that. All right, go to the next page concerning his statement. As for the disbelievers,
concerning his statement, as for the disbelievers, they will not be reckoned by an account of weighing their hasanat, their good merits, or sayyi'at, their evil records, because there is no hasanat for them, but their deeds will be calculated. Then they will be made to acknowledge them and be disgraced by them. The meaning of this is related to the hadith of Ibn Umar radiallahu anh, from the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, when he mentioned Allah's reckoning of his believing slave, that he will be alone with him and make him acknowledge his sins. He said, but as for the disbelievers and the hypocrites, he will call them before all creation, saying, they are those who denied their Lord. Certainly the wrath, the anger of Allah is upon the zalimun, the wrongdoers.
Nah. Keep going.
And in Sahih Muslim, rahimahullah, in the hadith of Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu, in a long hadith from the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam saying, Allah shall meet the slave, meaning the hypocrite, and say, Ya so-and-so, oh so-and-so, have I not honored you, made you prosper, allowed you to marry, made subservient for you the horse and the camel, and left you to lead people and be obeyed? He would say, Bala, certainly. He would ask, did you think you were going to meet me? He would say that. No. Then he would say, Allah will say, I am forgetting, ignoring you as you forgot me. Afterwards, he would meet with the second person and he would answer as the first one does. Then Allah will say, I am forgetting, I am overlooking you as you forgot me. Afterwards, he will meet the third one and say to him similarly. He would reply, oh my Lord, I believed in you, in your book, in your messengers. I made prayer, I observed the prayers, I fasted, I gave charity, and mentioned good deeds as he is able to. Then he would say, here then, he said, then it will be said to him, now we shall bring out our witness against you.
So here what's happening is this third one is trying to trick Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Oh Allah, like he's a hypocrite. And he said, no, I believed in you, I followed your prophet, I used to pray, I fasted, I did all of that. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will say, okay, now we're going to bring our witness against you. Now,
if the slave will be thinking within himself, what is against me? Who's going to be there?
Who is going? This in his mind, he really thinks that he made it through, and he's saying, well, who's going to be a witness against me? Because I fooled everybody in the dunya. I used to be at the masjid with them, and they thought I was one of them. Yeah.
Then his mouth will be sealed up. It would then be said to his thighs, his flesh, and his bones, cool, speak. Promptly they would begin to mention his deeds. He would say all that he would say in order to find excuses for himself. That is a hypocrite, the one upon whom Allah will bring down his wrath, his anger.
And this is also mentioned in the Quran when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says the day that they're تشهد عليهم يشهد آية الفصلت شهد عليهم سمعهم وأبصارهم وجلودهم. Their hearing, their sight, and their skins. And their skins will actually bear witness against them. And you know that the point here is that this hadith, you know, highlights for us the fact that the munafiq, the one who thinks that he is fooling Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and fooling the believers in this life, will not be able to. He has not fooled Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but on that day he is the one who has fooled himself, thinking that he could fool his Lord subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam used to frequently read Munafiqun, Surat al-Munafiqun on Yawm al-Jumu'ah, to remind the believers to beware of the characteristics of the Munafiqun who would definitely show up for Jumu'ah. And today, many people who claim Islam do not even show up for Jumu'ah. Where at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, a munafiq would not miss Jumu'ah because they needed to be seen. They wanted to be seen. And now we're too busy, you know, working a minimum wage job. Wallahu musta'an. Too busy to go to Jumu'ah. Further.
An important point. In the author's statement,
Just a comparison very quickly. Disbelievers and hypocrites. When we talk about the reckoning, the disbelievers and the hypocrites, their reckoning is going to be public, whereas the believers is private. Theirs is not an acknowledgement, a simple acknowledgement of what they've done. They will actually be interrogated. And the believer will be pardoned, whereas the disbelievers will be punished, and there will be witnesses against them. Now, Shaykh.
in the author's statement, an account of weighing their hasanat, good merits, and sayyat, evil records or bad deeds, etc., it indicates that this, what is intended by the reckoning, negated for them.
Yani that there won't be a reckoning for them. That is, that there's a reckoning, the reckoning has been negated. It means here weighing between the sayyi'at and the hasanat. As for a reckoning that involves acknowledgement and reproach, then that is affirmed as proved from the hadith of Abu Hurairah that just passed, radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, that they will be brought forth. Did I not do this for you? Did I not do that? Why didn't you do such and such? That is going to happen. But they don't have any good deeds to be weighed against their evil deeds. Now, beneficial point.
A beneficial point. The first of these for which the slave will be called to account for is the salah, while the first thing to be settled among the people are matters concerning blood.
This is from, there are several hadith that indicate this, but the hadith of Abu Hurairah radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, which was narrated by Hurayth ibn Qabisa rahimahullah, when he said that I went to Medina wa da'utu Allah azza wa jalla yarzuqani jalisan salihan. I went to city of the Prophet ﷺ. This was after the death of the Prophet ﷺ. And he said, I ask Allah to provide me with a righteous somebody to sit with. Jalisan salihan. So I don't use the word companion. Somebody I can sit with that's righteous. I want to be able to be in the company of the righteous. And wallahi, we get so many benefits from these little stories when you see how the calling upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala of the Salaf. This man is going to Medina in the first place, which was a blessing, right? But he added on top of that to ask Allah specifically to bless me to sit with somebody who is righteous. Sa'altu Allah azza wa jalla, qultu Allahumma rzuqani jalisan salihan. He says, so when I got to Medina, I found Abu Hurairah radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, and I said to him, I asked Allah to bless me with someone righteous to sit with. Hadithni hadithan sami'tuhu min Rasulillahi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Tell me a hadith that you heard from the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. And the hadith that Abu Hurairah radiyallahu ta'ala anhu chose to narrate to him out of the many hadith that he memorized from the Prophet ﷺ was something that would benefit this person immediately in his life. And he said, "Inna awwala ma yuhasabu bihi al-'abdu yawm al-qiyamah min 'amalihi salatuhu." The first thing that a person will be held to account for on the day of judgment from his actions is his salat. So if his salat is good, if it's correct, then everything else will be fine. And if it's not, إِذَا فَسَدَتْ, then he will not be successful. And he will not be successful. And then it will be said, as it comes in the later part of the hadith, look to what my servant has of tatawwu'. هَلْ لِعَبْدِ مِنْ تَطَوُّعٍ, meaning the voluntary prayers to compensate for whatever deficiency may be in the fard salat. Because sometimes a person prays, as the Prophet ﷺ said, and he walks away with half of his prayer, with a quarter of his prayer, with a third of his prayer, with the eighth of his prayer, so forth. So it depends on a person's khushu' and so forth, and how well they prayed. And so if a person has voluntary prayers that they've done, the sunnah, the 12 that the Prophet ﷺ recommended that we pray every day, and witr, and praying when you come into the masjid, and after wudu, and so forth, and salat al-duha, then that will be used to make up for whatever was deficient of the prayer. So the first thing that a person will be held to account for is the salat, while the first thing to be settled among people, and when we talk about the rights of the creation, because salat is the haqq of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's Allah's right. Whereas not violating a person's honor, not taking their life, not taking their property, and so forth, that is the rights of the creation, of Allah's creation. Now, so the first thing from the rights of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that you will be held to account for is your salat. Whereas the first thing to be settled among people are matters concerning blood, meaning their lives. Now, this is
because the salah is the most virtuous bodily act of worship, while blood is the worst of all rights of man that can be violated.
Nah. Tayyib. Question 1. Will all of creation face hisab on the last day? Huh?
No.
Come on, everybody needs to answer this. Will all of creation face hisab on? Okay, so who will face hisab? And what does hisab mean? The reckoning or to be held to account. Okay, so who will face hisab? Man and jinn. Correct. And only those who are religiously responsible in the first place. Children will not have, wallahu a'lam, it does not seem, that they will have a hisab. Okay? And then there are those who are accepted from that group, as the Prophet ﷺ said, there will be some from this ummah who will not be held to account. Tight. How many people will enter paradise without reckoning? Close to 5 million. Close to 5 million. What quality do they share? At-tawakkul. The Prophet ﷺ said, whoever is called to account is doomed. What text seems to contradict this? The ayah from فَسَوْفَ وَأَمَّا مَنْ أُوتِيَ كِتَابَهُ بِيَمِينِهِ. It's from Surah Inshiqaq. Huh? Yeah, Surah Inshiqaq, which is the 84th chapter in the Quran. فَأَمَّا مَنْ أُوتِيَ كِتَابَهُ بِيَمِينِهِ. As for those who are given their books, or as for he who is given his book with his right hand, فَسَوْفَ يُحَاسَبُ حِسَابًا يَسِيرًا. Then he will have a light or an easy account. How did the Prophet ﷺ explain his statement? When he said whoever is called to account is doomed, how do you explain it in light of this ayah? He said, ذَلِكَ هُوَ الْعَرْض. No, that is just the presentation of the deeds. It is not that a person will be actually, what? Interrogated. Tight. Last question here. What is the first thing that a person will be questioned about on the last day? His salat. What does that mean for your life? What does that mean for your life? If the first thing that you're going to be held to account for is salat, and that if your salat فَإِن صَلَحَتْ فَقَدْ أَفْلَحَ وَنَجَحَ or قَدْ أَفْلَحَ وَأَنْجَحَ, if his salat is correct, it's right, then he will be successful and saved. He will be successful and saved. What does that mean for your life? Seriously, because the reality is we're not studying this stuff because it's cool to know this. It's just a great thing to know. Fun facts. We're studying this because it has to have an impact on our lives. So if salat is the first thing that you're going to be asked about, look, if it's not right, forget the rest of the stuff that you were doing. You're not even going to get there. But if it's good, everything else is going to be smooth. That means that you have to take salat seriously, establishing it on time with its arkan, meaning the essential elements of the salat, with its wajibat, those things which are obligations in the salat. Trying your best to pray like the Prophet ﷺ prayed. Trying your best to pray more than what is an obligation. What was the norm of the Prophet ﷺ in terms of how many rakats he prayed in a day? The norm. 17? Huh? What was the norm of what the Prophet ﷺ prayed in a day? Who said it? 40. Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala said that the Prophet ﷺ wadaba ala arba'ina rak'ah. That was what he was consistent in, praying 40 rak'ahs a day. 17 are fard. The 12, what are known as rawatib, which are the prayers that are prayed around the fard. So 2 before Fajr, 4 before Dhuhr, 2 after Dhuhr, 2 after Maghrib, and 2 after Isha. That's 12. Plus 17 is how much? 29, and then 11 at night. 11 at night. That was the norm of the Prophet ﷺ. So 29 plus 11 is 40. That was what the Prophet ﷺ did on a normal basis. Did he pray duha sometimes? Yes. Did he pray more than 2 rakats after duha sometimes? Yes. I mean, there are times, but the norm in terms of what the Prophet ﷺ was consistent with was 40 rakats, right? And so a believer should push himself, that even if it's not possible or not that it's not possible, if it's difficult for a person to get to that, you should still be trying to do more than 17, because most likely in your fard there's going to be some deficiency. It's going to be that one that you try to pray at work and you just going too fast. There was, one. I mean, several things. The one where you prayed and you didn't realize that you made it to the second rakat, and you still thought you were in the first rakat, and you actually prayed 2, and all of those things. When a person loses his khushu', right? How do you make up for that? You make up for that with the sunnah that the Prophet ﷺ used to pray. I mean, the point is that salat has to be the backbone of all of your worship, and planning your day in that way. I mean, a lot of people, subhanAllah, even I can't believe this, but sometimes there are so-called Islamic, in quotation marks, Islamic conferences, symposiums, and so forth. Salat goes in and out, and it was never even on the itinerary to pray. But it's an Islamic function, conference. Subhanallah. And so, I mean, we have to be a lot more conscious of this. That's Allah Azza wa Jalla yuwaffiqana lima yuhibbu wa yarda. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to guide us to that which He loves and is pleased with. Oh, we just get started. We didn't start yet. You had a question? Yeah. This was literally the last class. But go ahead.
Okay. No,
I mean, we're 42 minutes in according to here. I'm going to go for at least for an hour, inshallah. Go ahead.
Okay, in terms of...
It's only 8:09, Sheikh. Night is young. Nah.
I had read, correct me if I'm wrong, that this is referring to at the end of their life and in the grave as well as on the Qiyamah.
Correct. That is correct. Ala inna awliya Allah la khawfun alayhim wa la hum yahzanun alladhina amanu wa kanu yattaqun. So those who have that quality of iman and taqwa, they are awliya of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What's the word I'm looking for? according to, commensurate with their iman and taqwa. That is the level of wilayah that they have with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So if they reach full wilayah, then there will absolutely be no fear for them. وَلَا هُمْ يَحْزَنُونَ, and there will be no sadness over things that have happened in the past, and no anxiety over those things which will happen in the future. Not in the grave or after that. طيب. Bismillah. Fadl Shaykh. This is in the handout. Naam, Mustafa. This is, yes, it's also in the book, page 227.
Anybody need one?
Naam, Fadl Mustafa.
Yeah, right. Pass this down.
يوم القيامة اللي هي العفو عن الناس والصبر والصيام.
Nah. So the question is, he said 3 actions that don't enter into the mawazin, the scales. Al-afu, that is to pardon people, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not prescribe for it a particular number, if you will. A sabr and a siyam, because siyam is from, and fasting is from sabr. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, إِنَّمَا يُوَفَّى الصَّابِرُونَ أَجْرَهُمْ بِغَيْرِ حِسَابٍ. That it is only those who have sabr who will be given their reward without hisab, without account. What does that mean, that it doesn't enter into the mizan? It means that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will reward for that much more than the numbers that he has mentioned in the famous hadith, which we've covered, the hadith of Ibn Abbas radiyallahu ta'ala anhuma, who said that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that Allah has written the hasanat was sayyi'at. He has written the good deeds and the bad deeds, that the good deeds will be given 10 to 700 times. When it comes to sabr, and fasting is from sabr, and also al-afwa and nas, that these things will not, they will be rewarded much more by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now,
Brother trying to do, right, what is the sin of the skin?
the sin of the skin.
On a day of reckoning.
What juluduhum? How would this? So the question is, a person's eyes, their hearing, their skin will testify against them.
Right.
Okay. What's on top of your hand?
Skin.
When that hand touches something that it shouldn't touch, or it hits somebody that it shouldn't hit, or otherwise, then that is what is going. It'll testify to that. Now, al-Haud, Shaykh.
The 8th event that will happen on the day of resurrection. And on the outer Sirat, the plains of the resurrection, there is the Haud, prepared for the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Its water is whiter than milk and sweeter than honey. Its vessels are as numerous as the stars in the heavens. Its length is a month in journey, and its width is a month in journey. Whoever drinks a sip from it, he will never be thirsty afterwards. Never, ever. It is that which the author mentioned in his statement. And on the Al-Sirat, plains of the resurrection, there is the Haud prepared for the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
Okay, so Shaykh Uthaymeen rahimahullah ta'ala, in his explanation, he's going to mention 10 things related to the Haud. And the Haud, just so that we know, fi Shaykh Mukhtar. The Haud, in the Arabic language, al-Haud majma'ul ma'. Majma' al-ma'. So it is anywhere where water is gathered. That is called al-Haud. And here it refers to, as the author explained here, it is the pond of the Prophet ﷺ. And a lake is a large, or a pond is like a small lake, right?
Yes.
So a lake has a river that serves for its source, and it drains into something else, right? But it's separate. It's separate from the river that's feeding it. And so to call the Haud of the Prophet ﷺ a lake, to me seems to be it seems to be more accurate than to call it a pond, because of how large it is. Masiratu shahr. Its length is a month's journey, which we'll talk about what that means, inshallah, because we don't use that type of terminology like now. What is a month's journey? And you can get to the moon in like a couple hours, right? So what is a month's journey? We'll talk about what that. I don't know how long it takes to get to the moon. 4 days. Who said that? Seriously? I don't think so. Shit.
Back in 69.
Nobody been there after that.
Is basin also a proper translation?
No, basin is I don't think the basin is a good translation for hold. I mean Allah Adam, because it doesn't seem like it fulfills the qualities, because the hold of the Prophet ﷺ does have a source. The source of it, as we'll cover, is Al-Kawthar, which is the river in Jannah. So it has a source. It's not just it's not artificial, in that sense. So Allah Adam. I'm not an expert in what they call water bodies, but it seems like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best that a lake would be more obvious. But the reason why most people will not translate it as a lake is because there's a word in Arabic for lake, and that's not Haud. Haud is a smaller body, which is the pond. Yes?
Shaykh Google said 3 days.
Sheikh Google said 3 days to get to the moon? Okay. Oh, yeah. Well, in a month, I'll tell you this. In a month, you could definitely circle the earth probably 20 some odd times, man. Anyway, khair. All right. So, so these are the 10 things that the author is going to talk about: its existence, its source, when people will go to it, who will drink from it, the description of its water, its vessels, its virtue, its size. Al-Kawthar itself, and do other prophets have one? Do other prophets have a hold? As you'll see, for the sake of ease, many of the hadiths will be repeated just to prove the point. Naam, Shaykh, fadal.
It is the arasat claims is plural of arasat. It refers to a wide space between buildings, and what is intended by it here are the standing places, the places where people are going to stand on the day of resurrection.
What it's referring to is after the resurrection, and people are brought forth and they're gathered. That's called al-hashr, right? Which we've covered. And then there's different stations, if you will. But the arasa is a plain, meaning that it's land that has no distinguishing markers. Nothing distinguishes any part of that land from any other part of the land. The reason why the author says fi arasat al-qiyamah, there's a reason why he's saying that it happens during the plains, is because after the Sirat, okay, there is nothing except for the qantara and enter Jannah. There's no more arsa, if you will. There's no more plains after the Sirat. And the scholars differ about where the Haud is. Is it before the Sirat or is it after the Sirat? And so Shaykh al-Islam is clarifying here that his opinion is that it is before the Sirat. And that is the opinion that seems to be the most correct, but we'll talk about that in a minute, inshallah. Now.
Primarily, Haud means a place where the water gathers. And what is intended by it here is the Haud of the Prophet ﷺ. The discussion regarding the Haud is from a number of perspectives. Firstly, this Haud exists now because it is affirmed that the Prophet ﷺ addressed the companions radiallahu anhum one day saying, Wallahi, by Allah, I am indeed looking at my Haud now.
Now, read the hadith here. This is the hadith. Fadha.
Narrated Uqba ibn Amir or Amir.
Yeah, Uqba ibn Amir. Nah.
Allah's Messenger ﷺ offered the funeral prayers of the martyrs of Haud 8 years after their death, as if bidding farewell to the living and the dead. Then he climbed up the minbar, he ascended the pulpit and said, I am your predecessor before you. I'm the one who's going to go before you. And I am a witness concerning you.
And in other ahadith, he said, Ana faratukum ala al-Haud. I am the one who will precede you to the Haud. Now.
And your promised place to meet me will be al-Haud on the day of resurrection. And I am now looking at it from this place of mine. I am not afraid that you will worship others besides Allah, but I am afraid that worldly life will tempt you and cause you to compete with each other for it.
La ilaha illallah.
That was the last look which I cast on Allah's messenger.
Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Subhanallah. فتنافسوا فيها ولكني أخشى عليكم الدنيا أن تنافسوها. Nah. So the point of here, the Haud exists now. He says, I am looking at it from this place of mine. If it did not exist, then the Prophet ﷺ would not be able to see it. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has shown him some of the things that are from the ghaib, in the sense that they are unseen or unwitnessed, unexperienced by others. But the Prophet ﷺ showed them to Afwan, but Allah Azza wa Jal showed them to the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Now, اقرأ شيخ.
It is possible that the Haud is in the place mentioned, but we do not see it because
It says also that the Prophet ﷺ said, and my mimbar is upon my Haud. That's not this hadith. That's a different hadith. He says, my mimbar is upon my Haud. Shaykh Uthaymeen is explaining that now. He says it is possible that the Haud is in the place mentioned, yani that it is, that his mimbar is right over top of the Haud, or it is also possible that the mimbar of the Prophet ﷺ will be placed at the Haud on the Day of Judgment. And this what seems to be the majority of the scholars in their explanation of this hadith, that the Prophet ﷺ's mimbar will actually be at the Haud on the Day of Judgment. Now,
Want me to go to number 2 now?
number 2.
Secondly, 2 water spouts from the Kawthar will pour into this Haud. That is, the Kawthar is a magnificent river which Allah will give to the Prophet ﷺ in paradise. The 2 of them, that is the water spouts, will cascade, will go down into this Haud.
Inna a'tainaka al-Kawthar. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, we have given you al-Kawthar. And al-Kawthar, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, is a river in paradise, which we'll cover inshallah. So Thawban reported that Allah's Messenger, Fadl Shaykh, Qur'an Shaykh.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Everything has a hadith. Because why does everything have a hadith or ayah? Because we're talking about the unseen. We have to have solid evidence for it. Now,
the source of this water, Thawban radiallahu anhu, said that the Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam said, there are 2 spouts, one of gold and the other of silver, bringing water from paradise, pouring into the Haud. Sahih Muslim. Abu Dhar.
This is also in Sahih Muslim, this hadith here of Abu Dhar.
Abu Dhar radiallahu anhu reported that the Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam said, he who drinks from it, that is the Haud, will never again be thirsty. There will flow into it 2 spouts from paradise.
Right. So Al-Kawthar, which is the river in paradise, the Prophet ﷺ described its banks as being made of gold. Its river bed is made of pearls and rubies. And the 2 spouts will come from the river of Al-Kawthar and will pour into the Haud. And so that is why sometimes the Haud is also called Haud al-Kawthar, or sometimes it's just called Al-Kawthar. The Haud of the Prophet ﷺ, his pond is sometimes called Al-Kawthar, not because it is Al-Kawthar that is the river, but because its water comes from, right, it's fed from Al-Kawthar. Now, طيب Sheikh. Number 3.
3. When will people go to the Haud?
اقرأ. The period of when?
Okay. The period of when people will attend the Haud is before crossing the
Sirat.
Because the situation dictates that. Since people shall be in direct need of drinking while at or on the plains of the resurrection before crossing the Sirat.
Okay, so this is the reason that Shaykh Uthaymeen gave. Other scholars like Al-Qurtubi and Hafidh ibn Hajar, rahimahumullah, and others, they mentioned that the Haud is before the Sirat. And the reason that they mention is because there will be non-Muslims, there will be people who rejected Islam, people who were Muslim and turned away from Islam, who will try to come to the Haud. Tayyib, stay with me. And the Prophet ﷺ will recognize some of them and will call them to come to the Haud. And they will be prevented from making it to the Haud, as we'll see in this hadith. Now, why is that significant? Because whoever crosses the Sirat is only one group of people who cross the Sirat. Believers. The believers who are not being punished. Who will not be purified in the fire of hell. They are the only ones who will cross the Sirat. So if the Haud was on the other side of the bridge of the Sirat, then there wouldn't be any opportunity for non-Muslims to try to attempt to drink from the Haud. Because there's only believers on that side of the bridge. So the Haud, according to the majority of the scholars, is prior to the Sirat, based on the fact that there will be people who come to it. So let's read this hadith. Fadl, Shaykh.
Asma radiallahu anha, the daughter of Abu Bakr radiallahu
Who was Asma's sister? Bismillah.
Aisha,
Alhamdulillah.
Allah's messenger alayhi salatu
These are your heroes and shiros. You should know who they are. Well, alhamdulillah.
said, I will be at the Haud, seeing those who are coming toward me from you. But
From you, and he's talking to to those who are in front of him, and those who heard the Prophet ﷺ were companions and munafiqun, and not all, and the munafiqun were not considered to be companions of the Prophet ﷺ because they never actually believed in him. Now,
so some people will be prevented from reaching me, and I will say, Rabbi, my Lord, they are my followers and belong to my ummah. It will be said to me, do you know what they did after you? Wallahi, they turned back upon their heels. He, the narrator, Ibn Abi Mulaika, radiallahu anhu, used to say in supplication, Allahumma inni na'udhu bika min an narju ila aqabina.
ala aqabina.
Ala aqabina. Aw an nuftana an dinina. Oh Allah, we seek refuge from you from turning back upon our heels, being tested in our deen, in our religion. Ameen.
This dua is, I think, you see, this is not a prophetic dua. Meaning we don't know. We don't have any narration that the Prophet ﷺ used to make this dua, which is Allahumma inna na'udhu bika an narji'a ala aqabina aw an nuftana an dinina. Oh Allah, we seek refuge with you from turning back upon our heels of being tested in our religion. But what do you see? Why do you think Ibn Abi Mulaika, who was from the great Tabi'een, by the way, why do you think that he made this dua? He's also a narrator. He's also a narrator of this hadith, by the way. He narrates this hadith on Abu Dhar and on Asma radiallahu ta'ala anha. Because at the end of the hadith it says, do you know what they did after you? Ma amilu ba'dak. And then in other ahadith, because there's several ahadith like this, ma ahdathu ba'dak, what they innovated after you. Right? And then it says, wallahi, right? They turned upon their heels. Raja'u ala aqabihim. So he's saying we seek refuge in Allah from turning back. What does it mean, turn back on your heels? It means they left their deen. It means they left their deen. So irtaddu, yani, that is, they apostatized after having been Muslim. Right. There are other narrations that indicate that they may not have totally left the religion. But there are different people who try to come to the Haud of the Prophet ﷺ who won't make it. Nah.
So does that mean if you drunk from the Haud that you won't fall off the Sirat? If you drunk from the Haud before you went to the Sirat, and you'll never... I
understand your question. I'm going to tawaqqaf. Yeah, I'm not going to answer that right now. I don't know. I'll look into that, inshallah. I'll look into that. Actually, without getting into a huge discussion, there's a very good merit to the question that you're asking here, because it has been discussed in the books of hadith especially, and it's a long discussion. I won't feel comfortable answering it without going back and getting to the bottom of it. It wasn't something that really bothered me until you asked about it. Tahir. All right, so is this part clear here though? When will people go to the Haud? And the reason why this is being used in other hadith that are similar is that if these people have turned back from their deen and the Prophet ﷺ sees them coming to the Haud, and these people are not Muslim, then they can't have been the ones who crossed the Sirat. Tayyib. Fadal, Shaykh.
Who will drink from the Haud?
Nah, number 4. Fourthly, from there. Yeah.
Fourthly, the believers who believe in Allah and His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam and follow His Sharia will arrive at this pool. As for those who rejected it and behaved arrogantly toward the Sharia, they will be driven away from it.
اقرأ.
Fifthly,
لا لا
yeah.
اقرأ هنا شيخ.
Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu reported that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, "You are my companions." And our oh, this is a beautiful long hadith.
Yeah. I shortened it.
Yeah. You are my companions, and our brothers are those who have so far not coming to this world. That's us, you guys. They said,
Naam, that's true. Nah.
They said, Rasulullah, how would you recognize those persons of your ummah who have not yet been born? He said they will be from Philadelphia. He said they will come with white faces, arms, and feet because of wudu, and that will arrive at the house before them.
Subhanallah. So here, look at the importance again of salat. Did he say anything about salat?
No.
Ha Mustafa. Al wudu. Right. Who's making wudu unless they are preparing for salat? I mean, and it doesn't mean that people don't make wudu to read the Quran and so forth. But primarily, a person is making wudu for salat. The importance of salat comes again. The importance of making wudu, of feeling. I mean, and these are sometimes, again, these things should make us feel the ibadah. When you make wudu, you should be conscious of the fact that this is going to shine on the day of judgment. It is through this wudu that the Prophet ﷺ will recognize you, and you'll be able to drink from the Haud of the Prophet ﷺ. Ghurran muhajjalin. Yani the believers will come that way. Ay, subhanallah. But the reality is that, and it is a reality, we're human beings and we forget. Right? So we make wudu, mashallah. Tomorrow when you wake up for Fajr, bi'idhnillah, or you wake up before Fajr and you pray 11 like the Prophet ﷺ used to pray, you're going to wake up and you're going to be thinking about this hadith. A week from now, you're going to forget. Wallahu alam. So it's important that we remind each other of these things from time to time. Now,
and I will arrive at the house before them. Some people will be driven away from my house as the stray camel is driven away. I will call out, come. But he said to me, these people changed themselves after you. And I will say, get away.
suhqan suhqa. Nah. Away. Yani so here, I mean, if we were to summarize, who are those who drink from the Haud? Shaykh Uthaymeen rahimahullah said it beautifully here. He said the believers who believe in Allah and His Messenger and followed His Sharia. They followed the Sharia of Muhammad ibn Abdullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They will be the ones who arrive at this pond, and those who reject it will be rejected. Those who reject it, that is His way, will be rejected. Now, we're just going to cover these last few points, inshallah. Fadal, Shaykh.
The description of its word?
Yeah, read from Al-Wasitiyah first, and then. Nah.
Right. Concerning the nature of its water, the author, rahimahullah, says its water is whiter than milk. This is concerning the color, but as for the taste, he said sweeter than honey. And its fragrance, the way it smells, is better than the scent of musk, as has been affirmed in the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Narrated Abdullah ibn Amr.
Yeah.
The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "My Haud is the distance of a month's journey. Its water is white."
So this hadith is going to come several times. Look at what's bold. Don't just read what's bold, but what's bold is bold for a reason. Because it's directly related to what we're talking about now.
Its water is whiter than milk. Its smell is better than musk. And its cups are as the stars in the sky. Bukhari Muslim. Thalban radiallahu anhu reported that the Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam was asked about the water of the Haud. He replied, it is whiter than milk and sweeter than honey. Sahih Muslim.
Nah. In other narrations it says it's whiter than silver. In other narrations, it says whiter than snow. And all of them are in Sahih Muslim or in Sahih Bukhari. Nah. 6.
Sixthly, regarding its vessels, the author says its vessels, its cups, are as numerous as the stars in the heavens. This is as reported in some wordings of the hadith. In some of them it reads, its vessels are as stars of the heavens. This wording is more encompassing. It takes in more because it implies, it suggests that they, that is the containers,
The cups.
or the cups, are like the stars in terms of the number and description.
Not just in terms of the number. It says its cups are as the stars in the sky. It doesn't say as many as the stars. It says they are like the stars in the sky. So the sheikh is saying that this wording is more encompassing. It's broader in meaning because it doesn't just mean that it's as many numbers as the stars in the sky. It actually takes the characteristics of the stars in the sky, that they shine, that these cups are shining and so forth. Now,
with light and radiance. So its vessels, its cups, are like the stars of the heaven in terms of number and illumination.
and this is the same hadith that we just covered. My hold is the distance of a month's journey. Now, number 7, Sheikh.
Concerning the effects of the pool, the author said, whoever drinks a sip from it, he will never be thirsty afterwards, ever. Even on the Sirat and after it. This is from the hikmah of Allah.
Siddiq. But there's the issue that he brought up, which is the important one, is does that they necessarily, that if they drink from the Haud, that they necessarily will cross the Sirat and not, be cast into the hellfire. And if they are from the people who are cast into the hellfire, will they be thirsty? Will they not be thirsty there because they have already had a drink from the Haud of the Prophet ﷺ. So again, that's a discussion that we have to delay. Now,
for whoever drinks from the Sharia in this life, he will never.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Read that again, Sheikh. This is from the wisdom.
This is from the wisdom, the hikmah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. No, this is Al-Aziz Al-Aziz Sublime. Ta'ala subhanahu wa ta'ala. For whoever drinks from the Sharia. No, it's Al-Aziz here.
No. Go ahead, Sheikh. You're good.
For whoever drinks from the Sharia in this life, whoever drinks from the Sharia in this life, he will never be doomed.
This is interesting because what does Sharia mean? Linguistically, what is a Sharia?
Law.
It's a path. It's a path that leads to what? It's a path that leads to water. Sharia, linguistically, is a path that leads to water. You take the horse on the Sharia, take them down to the water, and then they drink. So I find it interesting that he says here, this is from the wisdom of Allah, the mighty and sublime. For whoever drinks from the Sharia in this life, he will never be doomed. And so, whoever, listen to how he lays it down. Whoever drinks from the Haud will never what? Will never feel thirsty. Right. Whoever takes the Sharia of the Prophet ﷺ, follows it in totality, will always feel fulfilled emotionally, spiritually, and otherwise. You won't need anything else if you take the Sharia as a whole. I just thought that this was an amazing point that Shaykh Uthaymeen is making here to compare. So the Sharia is our hold of this life, and if we really do drink from it, if we take from it and we make it, then we won't need anything else in terms of guidance and salvation. Now,
that means that's really the definition of a true believer.
That is the definition. Yes, it is. Now, Fadl Shaykh.
Concerning the size of the space covered by the Haud, the author, Rahimullah, says its length is a month in journey and its width is a month in journey. This therefore indicates that it is a square, because it cannot be of this nature except that it is a square.
Its length and its width are the same distance, then that's a square. Now,
this distance is according to that which was known during the time of the Prophet ﷺ in terms of normal travel distance with the camel.
Okay, so here we have this hadith. This one is only a Sahih Muslim. My hold is the distance of a month's journey, and its sides are equal. Okay. and this is in other narrations, hadith of Anas, there are several narrations where the Prophet ﷺ says, for example, in the qadr hawdi kama bayna ayla ila san'a. The Prophet ﷺ said, the distance of my hold is like, do you know Ayla, Shaykh Mustafa? Ayla is close to Amman in Jordan. I know you know Sana'a. From Ayla to Sana'a. Okay. Amazing. Ayla to Sana'a is 2,490 kilos. Okay? Kilometers. Kilometers. Kilos. I know. Yeah. I know. Sheikh Mukhtar spent a lot of time helping people get over their problems with kilos. Jazakallah khairan. Now, 2490. Okay, so when you divide that by 30, because a month, so that the Prophet ﷺ in some areas he says is a distance of a month. Okay, in this hadith he says from Ayla to Sana'a, which is 2490. I'm leaving it in kilos for a reason, and we get kilometers for a reason. Okay, so if you divide that by 30, which is a month, and so we want to come up, well, how much is the distance in a day? Then that would be 83. 83 kilometers a day. Now, subhanAllah, the scholars of fiqh mention that the time that it takes a camel, that the distance that a camel can cover in a day and a night is 80 kilos. Yeah, I need 83.
Okay.
You can say the same thing. 80. Which is equivalent to 48 miles. Okay? Which is why when asked, when can a person take the rukhsa of a musafir? When can a person take the concessions that are allotted to someone who is traveling? Then the majority of the scholars say after traveling the distance of a day and a night, which is 80 kilometers or 48 miles. That's where that comes from. So we understand. All right, so now let's take it a step further, just so now we can understand. Because Ayla to Sana'a, if you didn't live in that part of the world, that doesn't mean much. Okay, the distance is the same as Boston to Miami. That's the distance of a month's travel. From Philly to Houston. Okay, we make it Philly style. Philly to Houston is 1,500 some odd miles. That's the same thing as 2,490 kilos. That's the distance of one side according to that interpretation. Some other scholars say the distance around it, it would take a month. But in this interpretation, each side is a square, and each side would take a month. That's a huge body of water. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us from those who drink from the Haud of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. Now, read this hadith again, man, just so we can.
Narrated Abdullah ibn Amr, the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam said, my Haud is the distance of a month's journey, and its sides are equal. Its water is whiter than silver, its fragrance is better than musk.
Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Okay. Father Shaykh, number 9.
2 spouts from the Kawthar were poured into the Haud that Allah has given to Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Anas radiallahu anhu reported that the Prophet sallallahu
This is the same as number 2. What the Shaykh says here in number 9 is the same as what he said in number 2, but here, Anas reported the Prophet sallallahu said, Father Iqra, Shaykh.
Do you know what al-Kawthar is? We said Allah and His Messenger know best. The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, it, that is Kawthar, is a river which my Lord, the exalted and glorious, has promised me. And there is an abundance, a whole lot of good in it.
Now, last thing, inshallah. Now, follow Shaykh.
Do the other prophets have a Haud? The response, yes. For it is stated in a hadith reported by At-Tirmidhi, rahimullah, even if there is a criticized narrator in its chain, the hadith says every prophet has a haud.
Every prophet has a haud. The Prophet said, "Inna li kulli nabiyyin hawda wa innahum yatabahuna aw innahum yatabahuna ayyuhum aktharu warida." And they compete with one another, if you will, the prophets, to see who will have the most people drinking from that haud. Wa inni arju an akuna aktharuhum warida. And I hope to have the most of my followers drinking from the haud. However, Abu Isa at-Tirmidhi himself said that this hadith is not sahih. And many other scholars of hadith said it's not sahih. This particular I don't know if it was just the translator. I think it actually is in the book of Shaykh Uthaymeen himself, rahimahullah. It says that at the bottom it says, yes, and Zadi was criticized. Now, in the Sahih Albani rahimahullah ta'ala said in the summary is that this hadith is Hasan or Sahih with the combination of all of its routes or roots, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. Yani bimajma'i turuqihi, he says that it's either Hasan or Sahih. However, the majority of the scholars of hadith do not hold that opinion. They say that this hadith is weak. So if a person believes that the hadith is weak, then that's the only proof that a prophet has a haud. Then we will say that we only know that our Prophet ﷺ has a haud. And if they believe that the hadith is fair or sahih, then they will say that each prophet has a haud based on this hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. However, it appears to me that the hadith is da'if, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. Further, keep reading, Shaykh, the last part. Moreover,
this supports the meaning, and that is just as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I think that's Al-Aziz.
ماشي. Azza wa Jal.
Yeah, that's it. Through his wisdom and justice has given the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam a haud, which the believers in his ummah will visit. Allah gives every prophet a haud so that the believers will benefit from the previous prophets. However, the greatest haud is the haud of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
And again, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us from those who drink from the haud of our Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam. أقول قولي هذا والله أعلم وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. Inshallah, we have 2 weeks left, ikhwan, and we have to cover the Sirat, the Qantara, Ash-Shafa'ah. The Sirat meaning the bridge that is over hell, that leads to paradise. The Qantara, which is where the believers' hearts are purified and that any rancor is taken out of their chest before entering paradise. And then we cover the Shafa'ah of the Prophet ﷺ, and then there are some miscellaneous issues. We'll summarize it bi'idhnillahi ta'ala so that we can cover all of the points that are necessary to cover bi'idhnillahi tabaraka wa ta'ala, inshallah.